The sun hung low on the horizon, casting golden rays through the towering pines of the Blackstone forest. Adam, a seasoned hunter, moved lightly across the forest floor, his rifle slung over one shoulder. Known for his precision and calm demeanor, Adam was often hailed as a legend among hunters in the region. Today, he was on a mission, for a bear had been seen raiding farms on the edge of the woods, and Adam had been charged to track it down. As the hunter paused to scan his surroundings, a rustling sound broke the stillness. Instinctively, he crouched, his sharp eyes narrowing. Following the noise, he drew closer to a clearing. What he saw made him freeze. A huge brown bear stood in the middle of the glade, but something was wrong. The bear wasn't free to move around. Chains clung to its forelegs, and barbed wire entwined its powerful body, biting deep into his flesh. Blood sullied his matted fur, and labored breaths were distinct even from where Adam crouched. The bear's eyes met his. They weren't the eyes of a predator, they were filled with pain and something else. A plea? Adam tightened his grip on his rifle. This wasn't the encounter he had prepared for. The animal let out a low, guttural growl, not a warning, but a sound of desperation. It slumped to the ground, exhaustion overcoming it. Adam took a step forward, then stopped. "What am I doing?" he growled to himself. It's a wild animal, not a pet. But he couldn't ignore the raw suffering before him. Against every instinct, Adam unslung his rifle and set it down. Slowly, cautiously, he moved closer. "Easy there," he said in a low, steady voice. "I'm not here to hurt you." The bear's ears twitched, but it didn't move. Adam noticed how the chains had been fastened. They were not old. Somebody had done this recently. A surge of anger swept through his mind. What kind of person would leave a creature to suffer like this? He knelt beside the bear, careful to stay out of range of its claws. The chains were tight, and the barbed wire was cruelly wrapped around its torso. Adam reached into his pack and pulled out a pair of wire cutters. The bear tensed, letting out a low growl. "I know, buddy. This isn't going to be fun for either of us," Adam said. He worked methodically, cutting through the wire one painful section at a time. The bear flinched with each snip but didn't lash out. Its eyes stayed locked on Adam's, as if it knew he was trying to help. After what felt like an eternity, the last of the barbed wire fell away. Adam leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. The bear took a tentative step, testing its newly freed legs. Then it let out a deep, rumbling groan and sank to the ground, too weak to stand. Adam sighed. "You're not exactly in shape to head back into the wild, are you?" He looked around the clearing, his mind racing. Leaving the bear here wasn't an option, it wouldn't survive. But taking it with him? That was madness. "Great. Just great," he muttered. "I came out here to hunt, not start a wildlife rescue." The snapping of branches made him whirl around, his hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. Emerging from the trees was a burly man in a tattered coat, carrying a shotgun. His face was hard and weathered, his eyes cold. "What we got here?" the man drawled, eyeing the bear. "Looks like you found my little project." Adam's jaw tightened. "Your project?" The man chuckled darkly. "Yeah. Trapped it a few days ago. Plan was to make a bit of sport out of it. Maybe charge some folks to watch. But it looks like you've gone and ruined the fun." Adam's grip on his rifle tightened. "You're telling me you did this on purpose? What's it to you?" the man sneered. "You're a hunter, ain't you? Should be thanking me for making it easy." "This isn't hunting," Adam said, his voice low and dangerous. "It's cruelty." The man's expression darkened. "Watch your mouth, boy. You don't know who you're messing with." Adam stepped forward, his face composed despite the turmoil in his mind. "And you don't know who you're messing with. Now get out of here before I decide to report this." The man did hesitate then, weighing the odds. Finally, he spat on the ground and turned away. "Suit yourself. But don't think this is over." Adam watched him disappear into the trees, his heart pounding. He turned back to the bear, which was watching him with an almost human expression of gratitude. Well, looks like we're stuck with each other for now, Adam said. Let's get you patched up. He didn't know it yet, but this encounter was the beginning of a journey that would change his life and the lives of countless others forever. The sun sank below the treetops, and long shadows crept across as Adam worked ceaselessly, tending to the bear's wounds. He used a combination of gauze and antiseptic from his first aid kit, improvising where necessary with strips of his own shirt. The bear grumbled softly but remained still, its massive frame heaving with labored breaths. There, Adam said, stepping back to admire his handiwork. Not bad for a guy who's more used to fixing carburetors than wild animals. The bear's gaze followed him, its deep brown eyes holding a mixture of trust and weariness. Adam couldn't help but feel a strange connection to the creature, as though their paths had crossed for a reason. A sharp crack echoed from a distance, shots. His heart leaped, and instinctively he grasped for his rifle. The man of this afternoon must have returned, and this time probably was not alone. We've got to move, Adam said, slinging his pack over one shoulder. He looked at the bear, its immense bulk sprawled on the ground. Not exactly easy to haul you out of here, but I'll be damned if I'm leaving you behind. He took hold of a thick branch and improvised it as a stretcher. Then, with great effort, he managed to roll the bear onto it. The beast let out a low moan but made no protest. Adam fixed ropes around the ends of the branch and began to drag it through the underbrush, his face running with sweat from the heavy exertion. Every rustle and groan seemed to take on new significance in the forest tonight, amplifying his anxiety. He looked back time and again, half expecting the burly man and his cohorts to materialize at any moment. But the woods remained still except for the rhythmic crunch of his boots on the earth and the labored breathing of the bear. After what felt like hours, Adam reached a secluded hollow nestled between towering pines. It was a perfect hideout, with a small stream trickling nearby and dense foliage cover. This will have to do, he grumbled, lowering the stretcher down with a grunt. He knelt by the stream, splashing water on his face before refilling his canteen. Turning back to the bear, he said, "Don't get too comfortable. We're just laying low until I figure out our next move." The only reaction of the bear was a mild huff, where it had shifted slightly, its immense body sinking into the grass. Adam sat beside the bear, leaning against the trunk of a tree and staring up at the canopy. He tried to ignore the gnawing sense of dread that had taken root in his gut. Morning came too soon. Adam awoke to the sound of movement nearby and bolted upright, his hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. He froze when he saw the source of the noise, the bear now standing unsteadily upon its feet. It looked at him, and then turned its head toward the direction of the stream. "Thirsty, huh?" Adam said, relaxing a little. He watched as the bear lumbered to the edge of the water, his steps slow but purposeful. Despite its injuries, there was a strength in its movements that was impossible to ignore. As Adam readied himself to break camp, his mind was a flurry of questions. What was he supposed to do now? He couldn't take the bear to a vet. It was a wild animal, after all, and the authorities would have too many questions. Yet leaving it in the forest felt equally wrong. Before he could decide, a distant voice shattered the quiet. "Find him. He's got to be around here somewhere." Adam's stomach dropped. The burly man and his accomplices were closing in. He quickly began to gather his things, his movements fast and efficient. Turning to the bear, he said, "Looks like our little vacation is over. Time to go." The bear tilted its head, almost as if it understood. Adam grabbed the ropes attached to the stretcher, but the bear surprised him by taking a step forward on its own. Though unsteady, it seemed determined to follow him. "Well, I'll be damned," Adam muttered. "All right, big guy, let's see what you've got." They moved together through the dense forest, Adam leading the way with his rifle at the ready. The voices grew louder, accompanied by the crack of the occasional branch or the crunch of leaves. In a few more moments, Adam spotted movement through the trees. He ducked behind a fallen log, motioning for the bear to stay low. 3 men emerged into the clearing, their faces strained, their guns drawn. The burly man from before was leading, a shotgun slung over one shoulder. "Spread out," he growled. "He's gotta be close." Adam's mind raced as he needed a plan, and fast. The bear, as if sensing his unease, let out a low growl. Adam laid a reassuring hand on its shoulder and whispered, "Not yet. Wait for my signal." As the men fanned out, Adam saw his chance. One of them had wandered too far from the others, peering at the ground. Adam edged closer, quiet as a shadow. When he was in reach, he lunged, wrenching the rifle free with a swift motion and jamming the barrel against the man's back. "Drop it," Adam hissed. The man froze, his weapon clattering to the ground. Adam motioned for him to move toward the bear, which now stood at its full height, towering over them both. The captive's eyes widened in terror. "What the hell is that thing?" he stammered. "My insurance policy," Adam said with a grim smile. "Now call off your friends, or you're about to have a very bad day." The man hesitated, but a guttural roar from the bear made up his mind. "Hey! Over here!" he shouted. I found him. But he's got a gun. And a bear." The other two men struggled toward the clearing, their looks of determination shifting to all-out incredulity, as they viewed Adam and the bear in one tableau. "You're insane," the burly man said for the first time, his voice hushed. Adam shrugged. "Maybe. But I'm also armed and standing next to a very cranky bear. So how about we make this easy? You leave now, and I don't let my friend here introduce you to his teeth." The men exchanged nervous glances. Finally, the leader spat on the ground and growled, "This ain't over, Hunter." "Oh, I'm counting on it," Adam said. As the men retreated, Adam exhaled a long sigh. He turned to the bear, which was now sitting calmly beside the log. "Not bad for a first team up," he said, tugging a hint of a smile. The bear huffed, and for the first time, Adam let a bit of hope that they actually might make it out of this alive seep in. The forest seemed to breathe out a sigh as Adam and the bear moved deeper into its shades. The tension of the just occurring drama still lingered in the air, but Adam knew they weren't able to rest now. The burly man and his crew would not relent so easily, and now they were aware of Adam's uncanny ally. "Looks like we're in this together," Adam said, glancing at the bear as it lumbered beside him. Though still injured, the animal's strength was returning. Its massive paws crushed the undergrowth with each step, yet its movements were quieter than Adam expected for a creature of its size. As they trudged on, Adam started noticing signs of people-discarded cigarette butts, broken branches, and boot prints in the mud. Men were tracking them. Adam's mind was racing to come up with a plan. He had to distract their pursuers from the bear without putting himself in danger. They came upon a fork in the forest path. Adam crouched, studying the ground. One path led to a rocky ridge, treacherous but defensible. The other descended into a dense thicket where visibility would be poor. "All right, big guy," Adam said, turning to the bear. "You take the low road. Stick to the shadows and keep quiet. I'll draw them toward the ridge." The bear cocked its head, almost as if weighing his words. Adam chuckled low. "Don't look at me like that. You're not exactly built for stealth, but you're smarter than you look. Stay safe." He gave the bear a firm nod before starting up the rocky trail. His boots scraped against the uneven surface, the sound echoing faintly. He glanced back once to see the bear disappear into the thicket, the huge form blending with the shadows. Reaching the top, Adam found a vantage point that overlooked the path below. He crouched behind a boulder, rifle in hand, and waited. The forest was eerily quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves. Then he heard it, voices and the crunch of boots on gravel. "Spread out." The burly man's voice rang out. "He's close, I can feel it." Adam regulated his breathing, his finger hovering on the trigger. He counted 3 men below, their moves slow as they scanned their surroundings. They were dressed in rifles, and there was a nervous darting from tree to tree. "This guy's nuts," one of them muttered. "Who brings a bear to a gunfight?" "Shut up," the leader growled. "Keep your eyes peeled." Adam smiled. They were rattled, and that gave him an advantage. He waited until one of them wandered closer to his position before making his move. A well-placed rock tumbled down the slope, drawing the man's attention. As he turned, Adam sprang from his hiding spot, knocking the rifle from his hands. "Drop it!" Adam barked, pressing the barrel of his rifle against the man's chest. The others spun around, guns drawn. "Let him go," the leader snarled. Adam shook his head. "Not a chance. Call off your men, or your buddy here takes the fall." The standoff was tight, the air thick with anticipation. Then, a low growl rumbled from the thicket below. All eyes turned as the bear emerged, its massive form casting an imposing silhouette. It moved with deliberate slowness, its gaze locked on the men. "What the?" one of them stammered, taking a step back. "You didn't think I came alone, did you?" Adam said, a hint of humor in his voice. A sudden rumbling roar from the bear was all it took for the men to panic. One turned and ran, in his hurry dropping the rifle he carried. The leader stayed behind but was unsure about his bravery. "Listen, they'll give you credit, you have guts," Adam said, "but unless you wish to be used as some bedtime story with this fella here, I would suggest you're running on home now." The leader's jaw tightened. For a moment, it seemed he might stand his ground. Then the bear took a single step forward, and his resolve crumbled. "Fine," he spat. "But this isn't over." "Oh, I'm counting on it," Adam replied. The men retreated, their muttered curses fading into the distance. Adam lowered his rifle and turned to the bear, which was now sitting on its haunches, watching him with an almost amused expression. "You're really getting the hang of this intimidation thing," Adam said with a grin. The bear huffed, a sound that Adam could have sworn was laughter. As night began to fall, Adam and the bear set up camp near a secluded stream. Adam built a small fire, its flickering light casting long shadows. He sat beside the bear, the events of the day replaying in his mind. "You know," he said, "I used to think of this forest as my hunting ground. A place to prove myself. But now, it feels more like a battlefield." The bear's regard was level, its quiet more comforting than words could get. Adam let out a sigh and ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know what's waiting for us out there," he confessed. "But I do know one thing. We've got to stick together. Whatever happens, we face it as a team." The bear's response had been a low rumble, a sound that Adam had chosen to interpret as some form of agreement. Relaxed for the first time in days, he leaned up against a tree and let the crackling of the fire lull him into sleep. Little did he know, their greatest challenge was yet to come. The burly man wasn't one to accept defeat, and he had resources at his disposal that Adam couldn't begin to imagine. As the forest settled into an uneasy quiet, the wheels of a darker plan were already in motion. The morning broke with an uneasy stillness. Adam awoke to the sound of distant rustling, a subtle reminder that they were not alone. The fire had burned down to embers, and the bear lay curled up nearby, its massive body rising and falling in steady rhythm. Adam stretched and stood, every muscle in his body aching from the relentless journey. "We bought ourselves some time," he muttered, "but not much." The bear opened one eye and let out a low grunt. Adam took it for acknowledgement. He couldn't shake the feeling that their luck was running out. The men would regroup, and this time, they'd come prepared. Adam's mind was racing, trying to formulate a plan. They needed an advantage, something to tip the scales in their favor. When the morning fog started to clear, Adam made his way toward a now abandoned logging camp he'd found years before. It was isolated and easy to defend, with an abundance of old buildings and machines that could be readily turned into traps. "All right, big guy," Adam said, shouldering his pack. "Let's get to work." The journey to the logging camp was grueling. The terrain grew steep, and the forest thickened, yet Adam and the bear charged forward. By mid-morning, they reached it, a cluster of weather-beaten cabins, rusting machinery, and a sawmill that loomed sentinel over the clearing. Adam immediately set to work. He scoured the area for supplies, finding coils of old rope, steel cables, and a stockpile of rotting timber. With the bear watching curiously, he began constructing makeshift traps. He rigged a tripwire near the entrance to the clearing, set up a log swing that could take out anyone foolish enough to approach, and reinforced the sawmill's interior as a final fallback point. By the time the sun had plunged beneath the horizon, Adam was exhausted yet satisfied. The traps wouldn't stop a determined assault, but they'd slow the men down, affording him and the bear a fighting chance. Later, as the stars speckled the sky, Adam sat in the silence beside a small fire within the sawmill. The bear rested nearby, its dark eyes reflecting the flickering dance of the flames. "Tomorrow's going to be rough," Adam said, his voice heavy with fatigue. "But we've come too far to give up now." The bear let out a low, rumbling growl that Adam took as agreement. He smiled faintly, the weight of the situation momentarily lifting. The attack came at dawn. Adam had barely closed his eyes when the first explosion jolted him awake. The men had found their way to the camp and were using crude makeshift bombs to clear the traps. The ground shook, and the air filled with the acrid smell of smoke and burnt wood. Adam took up his rifle and ran toward the entrance of the sawmill. Through the haze, he saw figures moving cautiously through the clearing. The burly man was in the lead, his face twisted in a snarl of determination. "You think you can hide forever, Hunter?" he bellowed. "Well, tear this place apart." Adam steadied his rifle and fired a warning shot. The crack of the gun echoed throughout the clearing. The men ducked for cover, but the shot did its job. It gave Adam time to set off the first trap. He pulled on a lever, releasing a huge log that swung from the trees and crashed into two of the men, sending them sprawling. The bear charged out of the sawmill, its roar shaking the forest. The remaining men panicked, their organized assault descending into chaos. The burly man shouted orders, but his voice was lost amidst the din of battle. Adam weaved through the mayhem with precision, taking out another man with a well-placed shot. The bear, despite its injuries, fought with primal fury, swiping at anyone who ventured too close. The men's weapons were no match for the beast's sheer power and speed. And with due time, the tide turned. Their numbers thinned, their morale crumbling. The fat man, grasping he was losing, turned to the sawmill. The burly man, understanding he was going to lose, turned to the sawmill. Lighting a flimsy Molotov cocktail, he hurled it into the structure. It exploded on impact with a bottle-shattering noise and sent fingers of fire running through the dry wood. Adam's heart sank. The sawmill had been their strongest defensive position, and now it was a raging inferno. He turned to the bear, which was locked in a fierce struggle with one of the remaining men. "We have to end this now," Adam muttered, his mind racing. He spotted the burly man retreating toward the edge of the clearing, his face twisted in a mixture of rage and fear. With a deep breath, Adam sprinted after him, dodging debris and flames. The burly man turned, raising his shotgun, but Adam was faster. He tackled the man to the ground, the two of them grappling in the dirt. "This is your last chance," Adam growled, pinning the man's arm. "Call off your men and leave." The burly man sneered. "You think you've won?" "This isn't over, Hunter." Before Adam could respond, the bear appeared, its massive form looming over them. The burly man's bravado evaporated as he stared into the creature's eyes. The bear let out a low, menacing growl, and the man's face turned pale. All right, he stammered. "We'll leave. Just call off the damn bear." Adam let him go and stood, his face hard. "Go. And if I ever see you in these woods again, you won't get a second chance." The big man scrambled to his feet and ran, his remaining men hot on his heels. Adam watched until they vanished among the trees, then turned to the bear. "We did it," he said, his voice heavy with relief. The bear huffed, its eyes softening as it settled onto its haunches. The aftermath was a blur. Adam spent hours extinguishing the flames and tending to the bear's wounds. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the wreckage, he sat beside his companion, the weight of the ordeal finally lifting. "You're one hell of a fighter," he said, patting the bear's massive shoulder. "I couldn't have done it without you." The bear let out a soft rumble, its eyes closing as it leaned against Adam. In that moment, man and beast shared an unspoken bond, forged in the crucible of survival. As the first stars appeared in the sky, Adam took a silent vow. He would dedicate himself to protecting the forest and its inhabitants so that no creature would have to endure what the bear had just endured. Together, they faced the darkness and came out on top, their unlikely partnership a true testament to the power of trust and resiliency. And though their paths would eventually diverge, Adam knew the bear's spirit would be a part of him forever, a reminder that even in the face of cruelty, compassion could prevail.